Hello, my name is Davika. I'm a climate tech recruiter at Climate People. And today we have Nick Comas with us, who we recently placed at Aquaoso. Nick, thanks so much for being here this morning.
Thanks
If
for having me.
of course, if you can talk to us about how your experience of getting a job in climate was, what that was like for you, if you experienced any barriers, that'd be great.
Yeah, in terms of barriers, I don't know if I'd really say there was much barrier there was really a barrier to doing this. I was definitely in the market looking for something new, and I was it's tough in the sort of modern age to find a job where you can not only get paid and continue living your life, but also have a sort of purpose attached to what you're doing. I felt like I had that back at my first job at the SEC, but that was a couple of years ago, and I've just been sort of in the banking world and startup world, tech side of things. But it's nice getting back to actually doing something that that feels like it matters instead of just you know doing a job for the sake of doing a job.
Yeah. Yeah, what was this like process like for you? Kind of exploring the space and climate and then, really just diving deep into it and like really breaking down different options and sectors and tracks that you could take.
It was definitely an interesting experience. It's always been a field that I've sort of been interested in. So it was cool to see that there was, job opportunities available in an area of my own interest. So it was just the whole experience, I would say, was nice. It was a nice alignment of personal values and experience, and basically a sweet spot of what I was looking for.
Can you like take us back to when you first started job searching? Like, what was your process? Did you just go on LinkedIn? Did Davika reach out to you? Like, do you remember how y'all got connected or how you even started looking for a climate job?
I wasn't really looking. It's that weird software development thing where you kind of just get inundated with recruiters every day, and every email just starts to like look the same after a while. Just like, oh, we have this job for you, we have this job for you. And it eventually it just kind of cut through the noise that it was just something different.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we actually were talking with someone last week and they said the same thing. It's like, I had hundreds of thousands of email messages in my inbox, and it was like, for some reason, this one caught my eye and I decided to respond. But like, honestly, it was luck. I was like, that's great. But yeah, it makes sense. Like, it's a good position to be in. There's so much demand for you, and you really can pick those industries that interest you. So yeah, we're certainly glad that climate was the one that you chose to pursue.
Yeah. So kind of on the note of that, can you kind of share more about what your relationship to climate is and why it's something that aligns and is important to you via your values?
So it might just be a generational thing for us, but I feel like we were all raised to be a bit more conscious of the environment, of seeing the sort of effects of how human progress up to this point has really affected the world. It's just something that's always been sort of in the back of my mind. I actually developed a board game with two friends of mine around the concept of climate change and sort of the effects of non-renewable energy being burnt and how that affects the world. And it just feels like it's always been something that's sort of been a part of my life. So it's nice actually getting to do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I know, navigating the space, especially, when we first started talking about how a lot of these companies are startups and they still have teams that are growing. I know there was some hesitation initially about joining a team that was quite small. So, I, you know, but also being a big contributor in a small environment, having that dynamic. So, um, in terms of the impact piece, that's definitely there. So in regards to, the job that you took with Aquioso, can you kind of talk to us about like the setting, what you're going to be doing, kind of job you took?
Sure. So it's fairly similar to what I was doing in my last place, in terms of like the stack and in terms of responsibilities that I'm eventually going to have, the hats I'm going to have to wear. It's, it is software development. It's the constant process of iterating on what you're doing, iterating on what people have done before you, every piece of code being a living document. It's a weird, it's a weird sort of environment where everything that you build isn't a permanent structure, and you have to be okay with essentially someone knocking down your blocks every single time you set them up. So I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? You just good.
Startups are weird in that regard. you gotta live in it. Yeah. No, yeah, I think you definitely like hit the nail on the head. Just like being in a startup is like a living environment, like it's ever changing. Like you do one thing and then it changes, but then like Davika touched on, like that still opens up the doors to the opportunity to like actually make a difference and your voice to actually be heard on an organizational level. So
It's so different from previous places where I've worked, where you're just sort of a cog in the machine and you don't know what you're doing and where it's going and where your orders are coming from. It's this weird, this sort of detached reality where you're just siloed in your own world. And being a part of a startup is you get to actually communicate with people. All right, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? All right, that makes sense. All right, here's what we can do instead. And you can have so much, you can deliver so much more value. You can deliver value so much more quickly because you can understand the stakeholders and because you actually speak to them, as opposed to just existing and getting an email down the line, sending something back and wondering why you're there.
yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Like I know, like Davika said, a lot of times people get like nervous around startups because it is like a little bit of an ever-changing environment and it's not as sure and definite. But yeah, that's a great way to look at it and flip the lens, and like you actually can have say and do things that you're not just doing the same task every day. You're doing things that you can see and that you can work on and really addressing the problem head on. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
there's a really beautiful level of creativity that you get to tap into and ownership that you get to have, especially like early on in this curve where, climate jobs are getting ready to like this whole curve is just going up, and it's going to keep moving up. Uh, so, in regards to, the job that you took, kind of rounding back to this question, can you kind of talk about the position that you accepted and more about the overall mission of the company and impact?
Sure. So I am a senior software dev. So that's going to involve writing code, understanding the stakeholders, and working on a platform called GIS Connect, where it is understanding how climate and weather patterns over time are going to affect crop yield for farmland. So you can take a parcel of land, you can see the water rights to it, anything farm related to said piece of land, and understand what's the best use of that land for the future, so that you can get your best return on investment, so that you can use the land most effectively, so that you get essentially for the money that you've invested into the land, you understand how to best get your return. So currently it is bank focused at the moment, but eventually the idea is to open this tool up to everybody, to farmers, so that they can understand their own land, so that they can better work with, as climate shifts in the future, how they can better work with those climate shifts to stay productive as farmland, but also, be environmentally conscious, live in a way that they can, what's the term for it? Like use their land responsibly and effectively in the years to come.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. Definitely see the demand for that and how that's a really cool position to have. Could you touch a little bit on your experience working with climate people? Do you have any memorable call outs or anything that you have to add to that?
No, not really. It was kind of a blur.
It's fair.
I
Yeah.
was in a very this weird headspace at my last job where I just knew I wasn't having too much more upward growth, and then this opportunity came down the line, and it just felt like like a life buoy from a boat passing by.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And, what do you originally think a career in climate could look like?
I had no idea. I
Is this it?
didn't even conceptualize it until you hit my inbox.
That's awesome. That's the best. We love that when it's like, that's like the audience that we were trying to target is people who don't know that climate jobs exist, but are like you, are like super stoked about it once they get introduced to it, but they need someone to tell them about it. And then they're like, oh yeah, I would love to work on something that I actually care about. Like that seems great. So yeah, awesome. Perfect. Well, Davika, do you have any other questions that we didn't touch on yet?
Not that I can think of.
Nick, do you have anything that we didn't touch on that you would like to add?
Yeah, anything you want to share?
I don't think so.
Perfect. So just to wrap up quickly, as we said a million times this call, our sole mission is to get as many people working on climate solutions, but that's not the only thing that we do. We also are proud to donate 1% of every candidate placement fee to a nonprofit. We sent over a few and I can provide a quick little refresher if you need it. But did you happen to know which one you would like to donate to?
Is it all right if it's not climate related?
So unfortunately we have 4 different options that we can choose between. So we have the Hanel Foundation, which is basically spreading solar energy and making sure that clean energy is accessible to everyone. We have Soul Fire Farm, which is just like a regenerative farm that's trying to end food deserts and really just practice good farming practices. We have Browning the Green Space, which is trying to bring like a whole new diversity, equity, and inclusion lens to the climate space and making sure that all people are accounted for and all voices are heard. And then we have the Environmental Voter Project, which sole mission is to get people who are environmentalists or care about the environment to vote at state and local and federal level in elections so that we can get some good environmental policies in the books.
Okay. In terms of where I stand as a computer engineer, the solar panels have a close place to my heart. So
Yeah.
I have to
Awesome.
go with that one.
Hanel Foundation's awesome. He's also a professional rock climber. So he is taking his sport and using it to protect the places he loves and care about all of that. So they're definitely an awesome organization. So thank you so much for not only getting a job in climate, but also for that donation. So yeah, like I said, we'll donate that in your name to them at the end of the quarter.
Perfect.